Welcome back to the channel, guys. I just wanted to follow up with you guys as far as, let's see, day 18 of my intermittent fasting journey. And the results are getting really good because I've actually made a couple changes. As I mentioned before, I actually switched from a 16-8 method, and now I am doing a 19-5 method. And the reason I switched to the 19-5 method, which means I only eat from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m., is because of results. The results I'm beginning are pretty amazing, considering I'm not really making that significant effort to actually think about losing weight. I tell you, I'm not really focused so much on what I'm eating. Also, I'm eating sensibly, but it's the time window that I'm actually using to lose weight. And here are the results. I started day 0 at 239.8. And then now I am at, this is day 18, and I'm clocking in at 227.8. So that is 12 pounds lost in 18 days. And I'm pretty much just using the time window. As I mentioned before, about 3 days ago, I pretty much stopped eating carbs after 5 p.m. And then now, as I build up my tolerance, I'm actually not going to be eating anything after 5 p.m. And I'm more at 5 p.m., I'm more focused on allowing my body to just gently digest my food. So I'm actually allowing my body to be in that fed state that I mentioned before, where it's actually assimilating, absorbing your food, which is about estimated 2 hours. And then the absorptive state, absorption state, it's probably another 2 to 3 hours where the food is totally absorbed. So by the time that I'm ready for bed, I would anticipate that my blood sugar is probably leveled off because my body is not using or is not compensating with insulin to try and absorb any of my food. So my body is actually is ready to actually switch into a more advanced fat burning state. And that's where I want it to be. And my sleep cycle has become so relaxful now that I'm not flooding my body with a lot of carbs, and I'm not flooding my body with trying to deal with issues as far as glucose and glucose conversion, which leads to blood sugar spikes and so forth. So as always with my journal, I always recommend that you read my disclaimer, and if you are thinking about doing intermittent fasting, definitely check with your doctor before starting, or your licensed care dietitian. This is, as far as the results here, these are not normal from what I've seen from other people. They actually lose maybe, because they actually go through a little bit of a tolerance situation for the first 2 weeks, because intermittent fasting is an adjustment, but once you feel the results are so amazing that you just want to keep going and you want to keep going. And that's why I had the motivation to actually go from doing 16-8, where I'm actually fasting for 16 hours and only eating within this window, to fasting of 19 hours and actually eating only in that window. So that is where I am now. So one of the questions I've been getting is what types of fish. I did recommend in one of my previous videos as far as the type of fish that I wanted to switch to when I was fasting, because fish is a high source of protein. It's also a great source of all kinds of different fatty acids, which are really good for your heart and good for your body, good for your immune system. I did mention my Wild Planet. I'm crazy about Wild Planet. I'm not sponsored or endorsed by them, but I do like the brand, and whenever I'm in Whole Foods or Sprouts, I always get this brand because I know that they do sustainable farming of sardines. And I absolutely love sardines. Sardines are a great source of all of the good fatty acids that you can get from, instead of popping fish oil pills, you actually get a lot of the really good vitamins and nutrients from these types of fish. One of the questions I always get as far as fasting and switching a diet that's more focused on seafood like sardines is which are the safest fish to eat when you're fasting. And I'm not going to go too much into it, but as far as fish is concerned, I generally I'm okay with wild caught salmon, which is great in omega, but relatively low in the mercury. Hg is a mercury, and also, of course, I love sardines. Sardines are also a great source of omega fatty acids. They are not high up in the food chain, meaning that cycle of big fish, little fish, big fish eats little fish, where they accumulate the mercury, and that's what you actually have to look for. So sardines are relatively okay, very good source of the those omega fatty acids that we're looking for, and relatively low for mercury. The other one that's really good too is freshwater. It's very hard for me to find it in the stores here, but freshwater trout, which is really delicious when you fry it or bake it. Really good in omegas, and also relatively low in omega. The ones that you have to stay away from is the mackerel. I don't eat mackerel anymore. It's great as far as all the oily and fatty acids that you need, but unfortunately, depending on where it's sourced, the mercury level can be pretty high for mackerel, only because it lives relatively long, and also it's high up in the food chain, meaning that it eats a lot of other fish, and because it eats a lot of other fish, it tends to accumulate the mercury a lot more. So I would definitely stay away from mackerel, and also I would not eat swordfish. And I wouldn't eat any kind of farm-raised salmon. I always ask the grocer, the guy in the deli, is it wild-caught salmon? I really don't mess with the farm-raised salmon, because once I learned that they actually use red dye to actually to feed, to get that so-called really nice look of the red flesh of the salmon, that was a major turn-off for me. So that's why I don't really as delicious as salmon is. There are a lot of caveats when it comes to salmon, so it's just a gray area I stay away from. But there's no problem with actually just opening up a can. At different jobs I've had, I just carry, I look kind of crazy carrying around a couple cans of sardines, and people would ask me, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love sardines. They have the clip buttons so that they're easy to open, and all you need is a spoon, and you have lunch. You have a snack." And if you want to add a little bit of rice or a little quinoa, if you're watching your glucose for carbs, then you can always add some flavored quinoa to a can or two of sardines. And I still do eat tuna fish, but I've limited my tuna fish from the can only because even though it's a great source of omega fatty acids, with the tuna fish, it does have issues with mercury. So I would only recommend one, maybe or two cans a week at the most. But these small little fish like anchovies or sardines, I think are okay, especially sardines, just because of where they are in the food chain and parts per billion as far as mercury. So I hope I addressed the issue as far as the best types of fish to eat. Definitely wild caught salmon is a great source. Sardines, freshwater trout is good. Definitely take a look at the mercury level of everything that you're doing, and I think you'll be okay. But yeah, we covered quite a bit in this update. I hope this has been helpful. But the pounds just seem to be coming off, and it feels pretty amazing. And I know a lot of people don't believe in spot reduction as far as fat loss, but I do feel it all over my body. 12 pounds is quite a bit, and my next stop is going to be 219, and my goal is to be there by the 31st of January. So I'm just going to keep going, but I modified my method so that I could get there faster. And that means 19 hours of fasting. And then you only have a 5-hour window to eat. And that's 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. So you could have your first meal at maybe 12:30. And then maybe your second meal at 4:30. And that's a wrap for the day. And if you're taking I'd make sure to take a good multivitamin, and you should be all right. So, and drink a lot of water. So I hope these notes are helpful. And of course, I return back to my disclaimer. If any of this is dangerous for you or not recommended by your doctor, please don't do it. But do check with your doctor, especially if you're going to be modifying from a more popular 16:8 to, as you build your tolerance and you want to go to a 19.5, then I think that's pretty good. It was either this 19.5 or go to an alt, which is an alt fasting, which is you eat one day and then you're off one day. And I didn't want to do that. That seemed a little extreme, but I could build my tolerance up to 19.5, which I did, and I'm feeling pretty good. Overall, my sleep cycle is a lot deeper. I'm sleeping now on average about 9 to 10 hours, and this is fully restful sleep. And that's where I want it to be, because I had sleep issues before. I don't know if they've been compounded by the events of the world, but anyway, the motivation was to address sleep issues, and this intermittent fasting cycle seemed to really help me with that, because now I'm allowing my body to really relax and enjoy my sleep cycle. You get the rejuvenation that I really need, and most importantly, I'm going into this mode almost effortlessly because I'm only eating in this window. Alright, so I hope this update helps. In my next update, I'm thinking I'm going to be talking a little bit more about different types of drinks that you can have that are safe while you're fasting. And then I want to follow up more with some of the exercising that I'm doing. And as I build my tolerance up to this method, I think that I can have this goal in sight pretty soon. So once I get to 219, I don't want to focus on the next goal after this, but once I get to 219, my goal will be to get down to 200. I haven't really set a date for that because I don't know what that's going to be as far as what's going to be realistic for my body type. and what difficulties I may have as far as getting from 219 to 200, but I think I'm well on my way. If this continues, then I'll be able to reach this goal, and then this will be my next goal. Anyway, set goals. Goals are important. Goals are always going to be important on the journey. Stay motivated, stay ripe, and stay crispy, and it's going to be all okay. And I hope some of this helps. Thank you so much.